Chapter 346. In the investigation of Mo Shilong's mind, this place was like a snake island. Within his detection range, there were snakes of all sizes. Logically speaking, these snakes were basically level 6 mutated desolate beasts. The territory of each snake should be very large, and each snake wouldn't allow other snakes to appear in its territory, unless the snake was of the opposite sex. But there were at least 10 giant pythons in every square kilometer here. This puzzled Mo. However, regardless of anything else, leveling up was the most important thing. Soon, he controlled the sea dragon clone to crawl forward. It didn't take long for him to encounter the first snake. This snake was a two-headed python. Two-headed pythons were very rare on Earth, but they were also very common on the Flaming Origin continent. This two-headed python was already 100 meters long in its non-combat form. It was about 5 meters thick. After discovering the sea dragon clone, it was about to attack it. With a thought, Mo released Long Wei. The sea dragon clone was shocked, and in the next moment, it prostrated on the ground. It didn't move. This was the magical effect of Long Wei. With Mo's current Long Wei in front of an opponent of the same level, as long as he released Long Wei, the opponent would instantly prostrate on the ground in fear. The next step was easy. The sea dragon clone began to devour. Even though the giant snake was swallowed by the sea dragon clone, it was so scared that it didn't dare to resist. It was swallowed up without moving. Then it continued to crawl forward. A moment later, he found a second giant python. It was a giant python with more than 10 sharp claws. On its back, there was a fan rib that looked like a fan. The fan rib was blood red in color. It was majestic. With just a glance, it made people feel that it wasn't to be trifled with. Mo still released Long Wei as before. The majestic python lay on the ground obediently, motionless. Mo controlled the sea dragon doppelganger and swallowed it as easily as before. Just like that, in just an hour, Mo controlled the sea dragon avatar to devour about 50 pythons. Devouring mutated beasts of the same level allowed one to level up quickly. Soon, the sea dragon avatar felt the pain of its muscles being torn apart. Mo immediately returned to his body. Half an hour later, he returned to the sea dragon clone. Sure enough, the sea dragon clone had been upgraded. A level 7 mutated dire beast. A level 7 mutated dire beast was equivalent to a level 7 desolate hunter. In the entire Yuzhou province, he was definitely a powerhouse among powerhouses. However, to be on the safe side, Mo planned to increase the strength of the sea dragon clone by another level. So he continued to control the sea dragon clone to devour the island. There were many snakes on the island. For ordinary people, this was definitely a place of great danger. But for the sea dragon clone, it was a place that could only be sought after to improve its strength. And now that the sea dragon clone had reached level 7, even if Mo didn't use Long Wei, the pythons would turn around and run away when they saw the sea dragon clone. Just like that, it devoured another 10 days of his time. Mo could feel that the sea dragon clone could level up again after devouring for another 10 days at most. However, the snakes on the Snake Island seemed to have sensed that something was wrong. They no longer wandered around as blatantly as before. Instead, they all hid. There were even many snakes that were hiding deep underground. As a result, it would be somewhat difficult for the sea dragon clone to easily devour them again. Mo also noticed this. Just from the point of letting the sea dragon clone devour and evolve, there was no need to stay on this Snake Island any longer. However, from the memories of some of the pythons that Mo had devoured before, he knew that the reason these snakes gathered here seemed to be because there was something on this underground Snake Island. And that kind of thing was very attractive to these snakes. That was why the snakes no longer fought for territory and gathered here. But as for what that thing was, these snakes didn't know. They only knew that it was a natural attraction. Mo was considering whether or not he should go and investigate what it was. Originally, with his cautious personality, he wouldn't take the risk. But now, his life-saving trump card wasn't good. Not to mention anything else, just the Dragon Cave alone would allow him to remain safe and sound in any kind of danger. Thinking of this, he began to crawl toward the center of the island. According to the snake's memories, the closer he got to the center of the island, the greater the attraction of that thing. It took him about half a day to finally crawl to the center of the island. Unlike the lush forest around him, there was a large barren mountain in the center of the island. There were no plants on the barren mountain. There wasn't even a blade of grass. On the barren mountain, only bare rocks could be seen. These rocks had obviously been there for tens of millions of years, but they hadn't been weathered. Emoshur probed with his dragon consciousness. He found that this barren mountain was at least 100 miles long. On a cliff in this barren mountain there was a cave. Many giant pythons were crawling toward this barren mountain, and their goal was obviously this cave. In his investigation, he found that there were hundreds of giant pythons of all kinds on the cliff below the cave, trying to climb up. But perhaps because the cliff was too smooth, none of the giant pythons succeeded. Emoshur immediately controlled the sea dragon clone and spent more than 10 minutes at the bottom of the cliff. When the surrounding giant pythons saw the arrival of the sea dragon clone, they all turned their heads and opened their huge mouths. Hissing sounds came from their mouths. The folds of flesh on the back of their necks also kept opening, like colorful fans, demonstrating to the sea dragon clone. Emoshur sneered. Wasn't it just a demonstration? Who didn't know how to do that? Longwei directly released it. The snakes immediately crawled on the ground. They didn't dare to move at all. Emoshur didn't stand on ceremony and quickly crawled over. Without caring about anything else, he opened his mouth and swallowed. It took more than 10 minutes to swallow all the snakes. Then he looked at the cliff. He saw that the cliff was indeed very smooth. Ordinary snakes didn't have claws, so it was very difficult for them to climb up. But it wasn't difficult for Emoshur's sea dragon clone to go up. He controlled the sea dragon clone and leaped. One leap was 500 meters. He put his sharp claws on the cliff and leaped again. Another 500 meters. After a few leaps, he had already arrived at the entrance of the cave on the cliff. A fishy smell immediately assaulted his nose. Emoshur controlled the sea dragon clone and held his breath. He probed inside with his dragon consciousness. He saw that this cave was very deep. It went all the way into the belly of the mountain. At first, it was only 10 meters wide, but the deeper it went, the wider it became. In the end, it was more than 100 meters wide. Chapter 347. Emoshur came to the entrance of the cave, and a strong stench immediately greeted him. It was so strong that Emoshur almost vomited. He used his dragon consciousness to investigate inside. This cave wasn't deep, about 2 kilometers. In the deepest part of the cave there was a giant python. This giant python, in its normal form, had already reached a length of 100 meters. If it was in its combat form, it would probably be 10 meters long. He glanced at it with the blood dragon's eye. Species: coiling python. Level: Level 8 mutated desolate beast. A level 8 mutated desolate beast was a little difficult for the sea dragon clone, but it wasn't impossible to deal with. At this moment, the 100-meter-long body of the coiling python coiled into a huge circle of snakes. In the center of the snake circle was something that seemed to be embedded in the ground. That thing was a translucent sphere. The sphere was about a foot in diameter. Inside the sphere, energy was dense. It was obvious that it contained a huge amount of energy. Emoshur understood. No wonder those giant pythons all wanted to climb up this cliff and come to this cave. It was all for this sphere. And this sphere had a fatal attraction to all the pythons on the entire Snake Island. Obviously, it was definitely not simple. Thinking of this, Emoshur's heart itched. With the system's character, he should be able to obtain that thing if he signed in here. He immediately signed in his mind. System, sign in. The system's voice quickly sounded. Sign in successful. Sign in location: Snake King Cave on Snake Island. Sign in reward: summon giant python. Can summon any species of snake of any level. Duration: 5 minutes. F***CK. Emoshur couldn't help but curse in his heart, although he could guess the system's reward most of the time. But it wasn't 100 different types. Fortunately, he obtained this skill, so it wasn't too much of a loss. It seemed that he had to think of a way to defeat this giant python. Thinking of this, he slowly crawled into the cave. The coiling python in the depths of the cave also discovered that an unfamiliar creature had invaded. It opened its mouth and stretched out its long snake tongue, letting out an unpleasant hiss. 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 This kind of sound was even more ear-piercing than that of ordinary snake-type creatures. It made one's scalp tingle. However, Mosher remained unmoved and continued to crawl inside. The coiling blood python became even angrier. They began to move towards the entrance of the cave. Mosher sensed that it was coming towards him and stopped. However, when he controlled the sea dragon clone to stop, the coiling stench python also stopped. Mosher had no choice but to let out an angry roar. 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 Then, he continued to climb inside. The coiling blood python once again hissed in protest. Hiss. 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 Then, it quickly swam towards Mosher. Both sides were very fast. 10 seconds later, Mosher saw the coiling blood python. At the back of the giant python's neck, the folds of flesh opened up like two huge fans. The joints on his body seemed to be alive as they wriggled continuously. A pair of blood-red eyes, emitting a gaze that made people feel a chill in their hearts. If an ordinary person, even a desolate hunter, saw such a giant python, they would probably want to retreat. However, Mosher, who was usually cautious, did not retreat at this time. Instead, he let out an even louder roar. 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 He charged towards the coiling blood python. The coiling blood python opened its bloody mouth. A pair of fangs were like two long spears, piercing straight towards Mosher's head. The two mutated desolate beasts were about to collide, like Mars colliding with Earth. However, at this moment, Mosher controlled the sea dragon clone and suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, Mosher was already in the deepest part of the cave. And that sphere was already close at hand. He stretched out his two front claws and crazily scratched. Although even the ground in the cave was made of hard stone, that sphere seemed to be firmly embedded in the hard ground. However, the sea dragon clone's claws were extremely sharp. Mosher easily broke the ground with his claws. Gravel splattered in all directions. In just a few strokes, the thing was dug out. However, what surprised Mosher was that this was not a complete sphere, but less than 1/10 of a sphere. This surprised Mosher. This should be a fragment of something. Just a fragment could make all the giant pythons crazy. One could imagine how terrifying the energy contained in this thing would be if it was complete. The coiling blood python saw that it had been tricked and was immediately furious. Or, hiss. It let out an even more hair-raising hiss. It turned its head and attacked Mosher in the deepest part of the cave. However, Mosher once again activated the Dragon Shadow Step. That's right, now the Sea Dragon clone could use almost all of Mosher's skills, so the Dragon Shadow Step was naturally not a problem. Using the Dragon Shadow Step, Mosher was already outside the cave in one step. The coiling blood python was instantly furious. It let out a long hiss. Roar. Hiss. Its hiss seemed to be summoning all the snakes on the island. Immediately, under the investigation of Mosher's dragon will, thousands of giant pythons appeared in all directions. Under the command of the coiling blood python, they surrounded Mosher. Behind Mosher, the coiling blood python also surrounded Mosher at an extremely fast speed. When Mosher saw this scene, not only did he not escape, but he also stopped. The coiling blood python led a group of giant pythons and surrounded Mosher so tightly that not even a drop of water could escape. Those giant pythons had received orders from the coiling blood python, and they had been eyeing that thing for a long time. How could they tolerate other creatures taking it away? Roar. Hiss. The coiling blood python gave an order. The thousands of giant pythons around immediately charged towards Mosher. However, Mosher only moved his mind. He activated the Summon Giant Python skill. In the next moment, the thousands of giant pythons suddenly stopped. Mosher moved his mind again. The thousands of giant pythons immediately turned their heads and attacked the coiling blood python. Seeing this, the coiling blood python was shocked. Never in its wildest dreams would it have imagined that its people would one day gang up on it. It opened its mouth angrily, wanting to roar and order its people to retreat. However, at this moment, a dignified voice sounded in its heart. "Don't move." This voice was like a brilliant sun, like a great bell, and it caused it to be unable to arouse the slightest thought of resisting. Therefore, it immediately stopped resisting and remained motionless. In the next moment, dozens of giant pythons pounced over at the same time. Although the coiling blood python was strong and its armor was hard, it couldn't withstand the attacks of so many giant pythons. In just over 10 minutes, almost all the scales on the coiling blood python's body had been peeled off. His entire body was dripping with blood. It was a tragic sight. It was also at this moment that Emoshur controlled the sea dragon clone to devour the coiling blood python in big mouthfuls. Chapter 348. This coiling python never dreamed that one day it would die at the hands of its own people. Of course it didn't. It should be known that Emoshur's summon python skill ignored the python's level. Not to mention that it was just a small coiling python. Even if it was a stronger mutated wild beast, as long as Emoshur willed it, it would have no choice but to obediently surrender. Of course, it didn't have hands. At this moment, Emoshur saw that the coiling python was dead. He immediately controlled the sea dragon clone to devour its body. It took about 5 minutes to devour the entire coiling python. At this moment, a tearing pain came from the sea dragon clone. Emoshur didn't have time to think. He let the coiling python hide in the dragon cave. Then his consciousness returned to his body. About half an hour later, Emoshur returned to the body of the sea dragon avatar. The sea dragon clone's body was now only 12 meters long. Emoshur suddenly felt like he had been F***ed. Damn, when other wild beasts became stronger, their bodies would get bigger. But the sea dragon clone's strength increased, but its body became smaller and smaller. It didn't look majestic at all. He glanced at its level in his mind. Species: sea dragon. Level: Level 8 mutant wild beast. Ability: Evolution by devouring. Click to expand. Seeing this, Emoshur was secretly excited. A level 8 mutant wild beast was equivalent to a level 8 desolate hunter. On the flaming origin continent where there were very few desolate hunters, a level 8 mutant wild beast was definitely the strongest of the strong. Next, Emoshur studied the thing that he had dug out of the coiling python's cave. This should be a fragment of something. According to the size of this fragment, the original diameter of this thing was probably about 1 meter. He probed it with his dragon mind and found that this small fragment contained a huge amount of energy. He asked in his mind, "System, you're very knowledgeable. What is this?" The system replied, "Dragon Ball Fragment." Huh. Emoshur was very surprised. Dragon Ball Fragment? Why is there a Dragon Ball Fragment here? The system replied, "In ancient times, there were still dragons on the flaming origin continent. After some of the dragons died, there was a very small chance that their dragon orbs would be preserved. After hundreds of millions of years, these dragon balls will shatter and become Dragon Ball fragments." When Emoshur heard this, he was even more surprised. Aren't dragon balls only found in the bodies of Eastern divine dragons? Why do dragons have them too? The system replied, "The dragon clan's energy is enormous and needs to be stored in the dragon pearl. Therefore, whether it's the Eastern dragon god or the Western dragon god, they all have dragon balls in their bodies." Emoshur nodded. "Alright, I believe you, but can the sea dragon clone swallow this dragon ball fragment directly?" The system replied, "The essence of the dragon balls is the crystallization formed by the compression of energy. When it encountered a living body, it could be activated again. Therefore, there is no problem with the sea dragon clone devouring it." Emoshur was overjoyed. He immediately controlled the sea dragon clone to devour the dragon ball fragment. The dragon ball fragment entered the body of the sea dragon clone and quickly released a small part of its energy. Just this small part of energy caused the sea dragon clone's body to undergo a qualitative change. All the cells in its body were strengthened by this energy, and the degree of strengthening was far greater than any previous time. The blood vessels and muscle tissue all over its body were also rapidly strengthening. The scales all over its body were also constantly changing. The scales before were pure black. Although they looked like they had a metallic luster, it wasn't very obvious. But now its scales had a more metallic texture. The dozens of barbs on its head were no longer so ferocious. Instead, they began to soften. 2 small bulges appeared on its forehead. It was as if something was about to drill out of them. Its 4 legs were thicker than before. The claws on each leg were also sharper than before. It looked like they were cast in copper and iron. Its body was no longer as wide as a lizard's body, but had become thinner and longer. Overall, it seemed to be slightly similar to the divine dragon that was rumored in Wuxia. Mo Shi secretly guessed in his heart. A single fragment of the dragon pearl had caused such a change in the azure dragon avatar. In that case, would the sea dragon avatar be able to transform into a real Shinran after he collected all the fragments of the Dragon Ball? He couldn't help but be filled with anticipation. When the time came, his body would be a Western dragon. The sea dragon clone was an Eastern divine dragon. Did it have to be so abnormal? Then he looked at his current level. His level still hadn't changed. After all, the upper limit of the sea dragon clone was determined by Mo Shi's body. However, Mo Shi could feel that the sea dragon clone had so much energy in its body that it didn't need to evolve through devouring to level up in a short period of time. As long as his body leveled up, the sea dragon clone's level would immediately increase by 1. Understanding this, Mo Shi couldn't help but feel happy. However, at this time, he could clearly feel that although the Dragon Ball fragment could increase his level, it didn't belong to him yet. He still needed to spend some time to slowly develop a tacit understanding with it. From there, it would slowly and truly recognize the sea dragon clone and eventually become a part of its body. So, Mo Shi spent nearly 20 days. Every day, he did nothing but let the sea dragon clone sense the Dragon Ball fragment. After nearly 20 days, there was finally progress. The sea dragon clone had almost perfectly merged with the Dragon Ball fragment. The Dragon Ball fragment was almost embedded in the flesh of the sea dragon clone. Phew! Mo Shi let out a long breath. He finally succeeded. Now that he had this Dragon Ball fragment, the improvement brought to the sea dragon clone wasn't just in terms of level. It was also in terms of combat power. The sea dragon clone was only a level 8 mutant wild beast. However, with the Dragon Ball fragment, killing a level 10 desolate hunter who was 2 levels higher than him was a piece of cake. It wasn't until now that Mo Shi was completely relieved. He didn't believe that there were grand desolate masters in the Tiandao sect and the corpse village. And as long as they were below the grand desolate master level, his sea dragon clone could easily kill them in seconds. Mo Shi looked to the east where the sun slowly appeared. He thought to himself, "Corpse Village, Tiandao sect, I'll find you soon." It was also at this moment that he jumped out of the dragon cave. And this time, when the hundreds and thousands of giant pythons saw the appearance of the sea dragon clone, they were no longer as fierce as before. Instead, they all turned around and ran. What a joke, this was only a level 8 mutant wild beast. If they weren't careful, they might even lose their lives here. If they didn't run now, what were they waiting for? Chapter 349. When Mo Shi controlled the sea dragon avatar and came out of the dragon cave again, the giant pythons no longer surrounded him like before. Instead, they turned around and fled. Mo Shi's current body was only 12 meters long. But because of the Dragon Ball fragment in his body, the long way on his body was more than 10 times stronger than before. Even if he didn't deliberately release the long way, it still caused a huge sense of oppression to these giant pythons in front of him. So these giant pythons turned around and fled. At this moment, Mo Shi moved his mind. The huge long way was directly released. Suddenly, all the giant pythons within a 10-kilometer radius crawled on the ground, not daring to move. Mo Shi was suddenly in a good mood. In other words, as long as he used the sea dragon avatar to release the long way, even a level 7 desolate hunter would have to crawl on the ground and not dare to move. Next, Mo Shi didn't devour these giant pythons anymore. Now that he had been promoted to level 8, devouring these level 7 giant pythons didn't have much effect. And with the Dragon Ball fragment, he didn't need to devour them anymore. He moved his mind. Dragon Shadow Step was used. In just a moment, he had returned to the base. This time, he was gone for another month. Once again, the crowd gathered around. Happy kept looking at Emosher to see if Emosher had lost weight. Was he injured? Although she knew in her heart that it was very difficult to hurt Emosher. Even if he was really injured, he would recover in a very short period of time. But she was still worried. This was the so-called concern makes you confused. After greeting everyone, Emosher called the little monk and Guojutao. He asked the little monk, "How many mechas are there in the base now?" The little monk replied, "There are 402 mechas in total. We wanted to continue production, but we really don't have the materials now. And the whole island is full of desolate beasts. It's also very difficult for us to go out and find materials." Emosher nodded with satisfaction. More than 400 mechas were enough to crush the Tiandao sect. If they were to go up against the corpse-chasing village, they might not be able to crush them, but they should be able to gain a significant advantage. The little monk continued asking, "Boss, last time you said that you would have the materials soon. But now?" Emosher smiled and said, "Don't worry. If we don't have the materials, someone will deliver them. Can you control so many mechas at once?" The small monk nodded confidently. "Amitba. Boss, you still don't believe me? Not to mention controlling more than 400 mechas. Even if there are 4,000 mechas, I can still control them." Emosher nodded. Emosher smiled. "Don't worry. In the near future, we will have 4,000 mechas. At that time, our world society will be able to dominate the entire Yu prefecture and march into the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud." Then, Emosher asked Guojutao, who was next to him, "How's our defense system?" Guojutao replied, "We've already built a few lines of defense. We found a few plasma cannons in the defense system of Hunting Island No. 1. These plasma cannons are very useful against hunters below the level of Desolation Master. As for those above the level of Desolation Master," Emosher said, "You don't have to worry about those above the level of Desolation Master." Guojutao nodded. "Okay, understood." He knew that Mr. Mo seemed to have installed some kind of powerful cannon in the base. This cannon could almost kill a level 1 Desolation Master. Strangely, they had never seen such a powerful cannon. However, Mr. Mo had too many secrets, so he was too lazy to pursue them. For the next few days, Emosher stayed in the base. Firstly, the Sea Dragon Avatar had just been promoted to level 8 and had absorbed the Dragon Ball fragment. It needed time to settle down. Secondly, he planned to spend a few days to see how strong the mechas and the Desolation Masters in the base were. In these 5 days, Emosher had a rough understanding of the mechas and the combat power of the Desolate Hunters in the base. The advantage of the base was the large number of mechas. There were 402 of them. Other than the military, no other force in Yuzhou had so many mechas. However, the advantage of mechas was only reflected in dealing with Desolation Masters. If they encountered Desolation Masters, they would not be very effective, unless they ambushed them in advance or launched a sneak attack. As for the Desolation Masters below level 2, he could deal with them alone. As for those above level 2, he would have to leave them to the Sea Dragon Avatar. Overall, the number of Desolation Masters and above in the base was much less than that of other forces. However, with a bug like him and a strong Sea Dragon Avatar, the strength of the world society was actually already the strongest in Yuzhou. Okay, let's rest for another day. We'll set off tomorrow to destroy the Tao of Heaven and slaughter the corpse hunters. At the same time, in the corpse village, the village chief was sitting cross-legged in the house, cultivating. At this time, a skinny old man outside the door said, "Village chief, it's a success." The village chief opened his eyes. A touch of joy flashed through his calm eyes. However, his voice was still calm and hoarse. "Both of them have been promoted to level 7 Desolation Masters?" The person outside said, "No, not 2, but 4. The village chief's eyes suddenly rippled. Although his voice was calm, It was obvious that he was suppressing his calmness. This is really a pleasant surprise. Originally, they were counting on the incomplete Dragon's Vein to promote the 2 level 6 Desolation Masters in their village to level 7. Unexpectedly, the other 2 level 5 Desolation Masters also broke through to level 7 Desolation Masters with the help of the incomplete Dragon's Vein. As a result, there were now 5 level 7 Desolation Masters in the Corpse Village. With such strength, who else could there be? Inform Elder Gu to lead 50 Desolation Masters and 100 level 10 Desolation Masters to Hunting Island number 1 immediately. No matter what, we have to get the secret of how they create Desolation Masters. Yes, Village Chief. The person outside turned around and left quickly. The village chief's eyes narrowed slightly in his sunken eye sockets. As long as he could get the World Society's method of creating Desolation Masters, he could create a large number of Desolation Masters. Then, the Corpse Village could try to become one of the top 100 forces in the 16 prefectures of Yuyun. After a moment, his eyes closed again. His entire body looked like a piece of dead wood, not moving at all. Not long after the people of the Corpse Village set off in the Tiandao sect. The sect master of the Tiandao sect was teaching his last disciple the cultivation method. At this moment, a voice came from outside the door. Sect master, the Corpse Village has moved. They have a level 7 Desolation Master leading 150 people. Hearing this, the sect master of the Tiandao sect frowned slightly. After a moment, he said, "It seems that our level 7 Desolation Master has to be exposed in advance. Inform the Elder to lead 30 Desolation Masters and 200 level 10 Desolation Masters to Hunting Island number 1. Let's see if we can pick up anything." Yes. Chapter 350. Early in the morning. On the distant sea, a blood-red sun tore through the clouds, broke free from the sea, and jumped into the sky. The sea was also reflected by the blood-red sun into a blood-red color. Between the blood-red sea and the sky, 2 teams of people were flying over quickly on hoverboards. At the same time, on the first hunting island, Mo had eaten the breakfast made by the newbie Happy. He was gathering his team and planning to destroy the Tiandao sect. At this moment, the virtual sentry tower's alarm sounded in his mind. Beep, 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 beep. The alarm sounded very urgent, which meant that either the enemy was too strong, or they were very close to him. Mo's dragon mind spread out to a radius of 300 kilometers. He saw 2 groups of people flying towards Hunting Island number 1 at high speed. One team was all skinny. Obviously, they were from the Corpse Village. As for the other group of people, they intentionally or unintentionally released a domineering aura with every raise of their hands and feet. Of course, they were from the Tiandao sect. Mo used the Blood Dragon's eye to check the strength of these people again. There was a smile on his face. The strongest among them were 2 level 7 Desolate Hunters. The rest of the Desolate Hunters were basically level 1 to level 5. As for the Psychic Masters, the other party sent about 50 of them. The 2 strongest ones were both level 10 Psychic Masters. Of course, both forces brought mechas. Both had 50 of them. The corners of Mo's mouth couldn't help but curl into a smile. "I haven't gone to find you yet, but you came first." Thinking of this, he ordered Little Monk next to him. "Control all the mechas and ambush them on all sides of the base. Be ready to attack at any time." Everyone was stunned. Didn't he say that he was going to destroy the Tiandao sect? Why was he going to fight now? However, they never questioned Mo's orders in the slightest. Little Monk nodded excitedly. "Okay." As he spoke, he crossed his fingers and tightened them. There was a series of cracking sounds from his knuckles. The keyboard on his waist had been opened. His hands kept dancing on the virtual keyboard. In the base, the 402 mechas suddenly flew out in all directions of the base. Finally, they found a suitable hiding place. Mo then ordered the rest of the team. "While fighting in the base, the rest of you only have one mission, and that is to protect the Little Monk." Everyone immediately responded. "Yes." Soon, all the Desolate Hunters and Psychic Grandmasters surrounded Mo. After 2 months, another group of Psyche Masters had appeared in the base. The total number of great Psyche Masters had already reached more than 20. The strongest Psychic Master had already reached level 3. At the same time, more than 50 hunters were added to the base. It was all thanks to the virtual Dragon Palace that so many scavenger hunters and psychic grandmasters had been recruited in 2 months. However, Mosher was still not satisfied with this speed. Right now, what the base needed the most was high-end combat power. There were still too few desolate hunters. It seemed that after dealing with Tiandao sect and Corpse Village, he had to find a way to upgrade the level of the Dragon Palace as soon as possible. After making all the preparations, Mosher used his draconic telekinesis to detect the location of those people. Soon, these people entered the range of 100 kilometers. He had already entered the range of the virtual Dragon Palace. However, Mosher did not give the order to open fire immediately. Instead, he waited. After entering the range of 100 kilometers, the speed of these people slowed down. It took them more than 20 minutes to arrive at a distance of 2 kilometers from the base. Among the group of people from Corpse Village, the level 7 hunter slowly flew forward. He glanced at Hunting Island number 1 below, his eyes full of disdain. Although Hunting Island number 1 was huge, the base below it was too small compared to their corpse-chasing village. Although Corpse Village had the word village in its name, it was actually very big. It was at least 10 times bigger than this small base below. This skinny old man had just come out of seclusion and did not know what had happened before. He had only received orders yesterday afternoon that he was to lead a team to flatten this place, and at the same time to obtain some method of creating desolate hunters. He had not been active for a long time, so he had come to take a look. However, when he saw this base, he was greatly disappointed. This place was not even comparable to a village. How could such a small place produce strong people? It was already too much for them to have a few level 1 desolate hunters. How could they let him, a level 7 desolate hunter, lead a team to such a place? Were the upper echelons of the corpse-chasing village out of their minds? Were they thinking too highly of this place, or were they looking down on him, a level 7 desolate hunter? He shook his head slightly. In such a place, there was no need for him to do anything. Since he wanted to go there, he signaled to a level 2 desolate hunter beside him. That level 2 desolate hunter understood and immediately shouted to the people below. "Leader of World Society, Corpse Village is here. Come out and welcome us." In the base below, when everyone heard this, anger rose in their hearts. What's the big deal about Corpse Village? Why do they need our clan master to welcome them? In the factory of the base, Mosher sat in his office, looking at this group of people on the monitor screen. There was a hint of a smile at the corner of his mouth. Ignorant guys. The desolate hunter of Corpse Village did not even take a defensive posture when he saw that there was no response from below. Were they looking down on Corpse Village? A trace of ruthlessness appeared on his skinny face. He shouted to the people below, "Leader of World Society, come out and surrender in 10 seconds. Otherwise, your world society will be razed to the ground." After he finished speaking, there was still no response from the base below. Even the few people who were farming in the wheat fields below only glanced at the sky and continued with their work. Everyone in the chasing Corpse Village was enraged when they saw this. Corpse Village was the most powerful force in Yuzhou. As long as they were in Yuzhou, no matter where they went, everyone would give them some face. Now, it was fine if the leader of World Society did not come out, but even a few farmers dared to ignore them. Was there any justice? Was there any King law? The level 2 desolate hunter frowned and started counting with his skinny mouth. 1, 2, 3. By the time he counted to 5, everyone in Corpse Village was ready. The multifunctional watches on their right hands were turned on. This multifunctional watch was connected to a wormhole space. In this wormhole space, there were hundreds and thousands of puppet corpses. Using puppets to fight was the corpse-chasing village's greatest killing move. A level 1 desolate hunter could control the corpse of a level 6 desolate hunter and attack it. Therefore, the people who were killed by the corpse-chasing village disciples were basically turned into puppets. They were released from the wormhole space during the battle. They could display extremely strong combat power. Chapter 351. 4, 5, 6. In the sky, the level 2 hunter was still counting. Not far away, the people from Tiandao sect all perked up. It had been a long time since they saw the corpse village in action. Today, they could see the corpse village in action. This gave them a better understanding of the corpse village's strength. On the ground, the people from the World Society didn't seem to care about the strong people in the sky at all. They continued to lower their heads and do their work. This made the level 2 desolate hunter burn with rage. They looked down on him too much. The people from the World Society really looked down on him too much. Since that was the case, he would let them have a taste of the corpse village's anger. Thinking of this, he sped up his counting. 7, 9. Just as the word 9 left his mouth, a voice suddenly rang out. Whoosh! A red beam of light suddenly appeared and directly pierced his abdomen. A large amount of energy leaked out of his dantian. His whole body lost the support of energy and instantly fell from the sky. Everyone in the corpse village was shocked. They hurriedly tried to catch the level 2 hunter who had fallen from the sky. However, at this moment, whoosh 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 whoosh, hundreds and thousands of fiery red light pillars suddenly shot over from all directions. Whoosh! A level 1 hunter's head was blown apart. Whoosh! The dantian of a level 3 hunter's abdomen was pierced. Whoosh! A level 2 hunter's chest was pierced with a big hole. As for those hunters, they had no resistance in front of these light beams. Basically, they were directly blown to pieces as soon as they were touched. The scene was suddenly chaotic. Not only the corpse village, but also the hunters from Tiandao sect were directly blown to pieces. Because they were almost deep in the center of the virtual dragon palace, the attacks came from all directions. At this moment, they couldn't escape even if they wanted to. Moreover, the mechas they brought were supposed to have defensive light shields. However, after being hit by the red beams of light, they didn't even have the chance to activate their defensive light shields. They were directly blown to pieces by the red beams of light. Seeing this, the elder of Tiandao sect's expression suddenly became serious. There was no way for the hunters to dodge such an attack. Only the hunters could dodge it. Furthermore, the other party's weapon had some sort of concealment technology that made it impossible to see it with the naked eye. He immediately roared, "Keyboard player, find their weapons for me and destroy them with the mecha." The keyboard player hurriedly operated the keyboard with both hands. However, after a moment, he shook his head in despair. First elder, infrared scanning, laser scanning, heat sensing, sound wave detection. No detection method can find their weapons. The first elder's expression became even more solemn. If they couldn't even find the other party's weapon, how were they going to fight this battle? The desolate hunters were killed by the beams of light one by one. Even some of the desolate hunters were injured. He hurriedly ordered, "Hunters, those with wormhole teleportation devices, retreat first." Before his voice had died away, about 30 hunters who owned wormhole transmission devices had started the devices one after another. In the next moment, their bodies turned into balls of bluish-white light. He disappeared into the air. It was the same situation in Corpse Village. "Elder, their weapons are invisible. We can't find them." The elder's sunken eye sockets revealed a trace of solemnity. "Nonsense, I know that their weapons are invisible, but even if they are invisible to human eyes, are they invisible to all kinds of detection methods?" This was originally a rhetorical question. However, the keyboard player of Corpse Village nodded seriously. "Yes, elder." The elder scolded again. "Trash." As he spoke, he flew toward the place where the beam of light had just shot out. "Even if it is invisible, I will still destroy it for you." Soon, he flew to the place where the beam of light had shot out. However, he still couldn't detect the existence of any weapons. Shio! Another beam of light shot towards him from a place that was only 5 meters in front of him. He moved his body to the side and dodged the beam of light. Then, an iron stick-shaped genetic weapon condensed on his right arm. He ruthlessly smashed it toward the place where the beam of light had shot out. Wu, because the speed was too fast, the iron stick-shaped genetic weapon created an air-piercing sound in the air. However, such a swift and powerful strike hit nothing but air even after swinging out half a circle. It was as if there was no weapon there at all. Humph! The level 7 Desolate Hunter snorted coldly. This was obviously some kind of camouflage. He could clearly shoot out a beam of light to attack, but he couldn't hit it. This should be some kind of advanced technique. However, all technical means were useless in the face of powerful strength. Thinking of this, his genetic weapon quickly turned fiery red. It looked like a red-hot iron stick. Then, a red-white beam of light quickly condensed on the red-hot iron stick. The next moment, a red-white beam of light shot out. Shio! It shot toward the location of the weapon. However, the beam of energy he shot out directly passed through the place where the weapon was. It was as if there was nothing there. Shio, 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 shio. He shot out several more beams of energy in succession. However, all the energy passed through the place where the weapon was. Instead, several beams of light shot out from where the weapon was, killing several of the zombie village's scavenger hunters. This made the level 7 Desolate Hunter doubt his life. Damn, what kind of weapon is this? When it attacked, it could kill the disciples of Corpse Village. When he attacked, it was as if it didn't exist at all. Did it have to be so shameless? He didn't know that the virtual Dragon Palace didn't exist for others. The virtual sentry tower in the virtual Dragon Palace naturally didn't exist for others. Not to mention that he was only a level 7 Desolate Hunter. Even if the strongest person in the Flaming Origin continent came, he wouldn't be able to attack the virtual sentry tower. The level 7 Desolate Hunter was doubting his life at this moment. Only then did he order the disciples of Corpse Village. Disciples with teleportation devices, leave as soon as possible. Although those disciples had teleportation devices before, they didn't dare to retreat without receiving orders. After all, if they were treated as deserters, even if they escaped death today, they would be executed when they went back. And because the level 7 Desolate Hunter's order was too late, half of their core disciples were already dead. Only about 20 people were left. These 20 people quickly activated the device and fled. The level 7 Desolate Hunter only felt that he had been greatly humiliated. He, a level 7 Desolate Hunter, had personally led a team, but now, he had lost half of his core disciples before even seeing the face of the target. This was simply a great humiliation. Thinking of this, he roared, "Keyboard player, attack!" Chapter 352. The level 7 Desolate Hunter roared at the keyboard player not far away. "Keyboard player, attack! Raise the ground below to the ground." Hearing this, the keyboard player immediately nodded. "Yes, village chief." His fingers kept dancing on the keyboard. Soon, the remaining 40 mechas turned their cannons and planned to bombard the ground. However, at this moment, the 40 mechas were attacked by hundreds and thousands of tiny light beams almost at the same time. These tiny light beams were only as thick as a finger. Compared to the light beams shot out by the mechas, it was less than 1/10. However, after each light beam hit a mecha, the surface of the mecha would quickly lose its defensive light shield. At the same time, mechas from all directions quickly rose into the air. 10, 20, 50, 100, 200, 300, 400. Each of the mechas released a beam of energy. In the sky, from all directions, beams of light kept bombarding the enemy mechas in the center. The entire sky was suddenly reflected in a gorgeous light. On the ground, the humans looked at the scene in the sky with shock on their faces. Mecha battle, laser energy. This was a scene they had only seen in movies before, but now it was happening in front of their eyes. It made them feel unreal. However, they were just shocked. They were not worried, because they all knew that no matter how strong the enemy was, Mr. Mo could deal with it. In the factory workshop, Little Monk's fingers danced quickly. At the same time, 4 mechanical arms popped out from his belt. In total, there were 6 arms and 30 fingers. They danced on the keyboard, leaving afterimages. Originally, on the Flaming Land, it was already the limit for one person to control 50 mechas at the same time. After a long period of experimentation, the little monk developed this mechanical arm that was specially used to control mechas. These mechanical arms were connected to his consciousness as if they were his own arms. With 30 fingers, he could operate up to 500 mechas at most. This was truly a case of one person being able to fight against an entire army. In the sky, within a few seconds, more than 20 mechas from the Tiandao sect and the corpse village were destroyed. When the people of the Tiandao sect saw this, they were all a little confused. So many mechas! How is this possible? Could the world society's leader be the illegitimate son of the military? A mecha brigade. During the martial arts assembly, we thought that was the true strength of the world assembly. Who would have thought that their true strength was far beyond our imagination? Everyone from the chasing corpse village was dumbfounded. Never in their wildest dreams would they have imagined that the world society would have so many mechas. One had to know that each mecha was equivalent to a level 1 hunter. More than 400 mechas were equivalent to more than 400 level 1 hunters. Damn it! Hunters above level 2. Attack. The first elder of the Tiandao sect said. Only level 2 hunters and above would have a chance of winning against a mech. At the same time, the level 7 desolate hunter from the corpse village also ordered, level 1 desolate hunters, pay attention to dodge. Level 2 desolate hunters, destroy those mechas. As a result, more than 100 hunters from the two factions rushed towards the surrounding mechas. However, right at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in the sky. This shadow was 800 meters long. His body was somewhat like a snake. The scales on its body had a metallic texture. It was as if they were made of metal. There were 4 thick legs on its body. Sharp claws were at the end of the legs. There was a triangular ridge on its back. Among the more than 10 soft spikes on its head, there were 2 small bulges. It looked as if something was about to grow out of it. The sea dragon clone. At this moment, the sea dragon clone was 50% similar to the Wuxia dragon god. At this moment, the sea dragon clone had a fragment of the Dragon Ball in its body. Although it couldn't really fly, it could stay in the air for a short period of time. As soon as it appeared, the long way on its body was immediately released. The desolate hunters who were originally rushing towards the surrounding mechas, those who were below level 5, couldn't resist at all. The fear in their hearts made them involuntarily want to crawl on the ground. As a result, they fell from the sky one after another. Pa 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 pa. Because of the fear in their hearts, they fell extremely fast. Cracks appeared on the ground below. But even so, they didn't dare to look up at the huge creature at all. As for the desolate hunters above level 5, although they could still barely stay awake, they didn't dare to attack anymore. These desolate hunters were all very experienced and knowledgeable. They had seen huge creatures before. They had even seen creatures that were 1,000 meters long and 2,000 meters long. But this creature was different from any creature they had seen before. It seemed to have a natural deterrent force. As long as they looked at it, they would completely lose the thought of resisting. It was as if it was the most powerful and mysterious creature in the world. In front of it, humans seemed so small and vulnerable. The people in the base on the ground saw this huge creature suddenly appear. They couldn't help but exclaim, "Is this a dragon? A dragon god? It's really a dragon god?" When Happy saw this through the surveillance camera, he gestured at Mo, who was by his side, in surprise. "Brother Mo, is this the Wuxia dragon god?" Mo smiled. "It's just a semi-finished product. It's not a real dragon god yet. Only when he found all the Dragon Ball fragments in the future could it evolve into a real Wuxia dragon god." As for why the dragon god in Wuxia legends appeared in this world, Mo didn't care anymore. Vampires and zombies, weren't these things that only appeared in legends? At this moment in the sky, the level 7 desolate hunter looked at the 800-meter-long creature. Extreme fear rose in his heart. There was actually such a terrifying creature in the World Club. Damn it, what was the village chief doing? He didn't even report such important information to him. and he even sent an old man like him to die. It was too difficult for him. In his panic, he hurriedly tried to escape. And he didn't fly far away. He wasn't even sure if his speed could be compared to this creature's. So he didn't dare to take the risk to escape with his hover boots. Instead, he directly opened the wormhole teleportation device. The next moment, his body turned into a blue-white ball of light and quickly disappeared. Emoshur secretly shook his head. The virtual dragon palace was strong, but if the other party had the wormhole teleportation device, they could escape. System, after the virtual dragon palace is upgraded in the future, can it prevent the other party from escaping through the wormhole teleportation device? The system's voice quickly sounded. Host, please explore on your own. Chapter 353. When Emoshur saw that the biggest fish had escaped, he couldn't help but feel a little regretful. If he had been able to kill that level 7 desolate hunter now, it would have saved him a lot of trouble when he went to the corpse village. But it didn't matter. Generally speaking, the coordinates of the wormhole teleportation technology were set within their respective forces. By the time he killed his way to the Tiandao sect and the corpse village, their wormhole teleportation devices would basically be useless. At this time, the level 5 desolate hunters in the sky saw that the level 7 desolate hunter had escaped. Naturally, they didn't dare to stay. One by one, they activated their teleportation devices, turned into human-shaped balls of light, and disappeared. The desolate hunters below level 5 were miserable. Under the long way of the sea dragon clone, they didn't even have the courage to escape. Even the desolate hunters each had a wormhole teleportation device in their hands. But under the long way of the sea dragon clone, everyone was already scared out of their wits. They had no intention of activating the wormhole teleportation device. The sea dragon clone immediately opened its huge mouth and sucked in. A huge suction force came from within. The desolate hunters, who were lying on the ground and trembling, were suddenly sucked into the air and into the mouth of the sea dragon clone. In just one mouthful, the dozens of desolate hunters were all swallowed into its stomach. Even Emoshur was extremely shocked when he saw this. In front of the sea dragon clone, a level 8 mutated desolate beast, level 1, level 2, and level 3 desolate hunters were simply dregs. Even the level 7 desolate hunters could only escape in a sorry state. This battle, which should have been like Mars colliding with Earth, was destined to be dull and tasteless the moment the sea dragon clone appeared. In the end, of all the people and mechas brought by the Tiandao sect, except for the 2 level 5 desolate hunters who escaped, the rest were all wiped out. The corpse village was even more miserable. They came with more people, so their losses were even more disastrous. Moreover, all of them died before they could even release their puppets. Only 4 level 5 and above desolate hunters were left, and they escaped with the level 7 desolate hunter. As for the world society, the casualties were 0. With 0 casualties, the first and second forces in Yuzhou paid such a heavy price. If this was told to others, no one would believe it. However, at that moment, those 2 powers had truly believed him. Emoshur said to Guojutao, "Get someone to clean it up." Only then did Guojutao regain his senses. He withdrew his gaze from the sea dragon clone in the sky. He said to Emoshur, "Yes, Mr. Emoshur," then stored all 400 mechas into his system backpack. Then he took out the dragon cave and said, "Everyone who has reached the level of a desolate hunter, as well as the young monk and Emma, enter the dragon's cave." Little monk and the others immediately entered the dragon cave. Emoshur was just about to enter the cave when Happy grabbed his arm. Emoshur turned around and asked, "What's wrong?" Happy made a sign. "I want to go too." Emoshur shook his head. "This time we're going to destroy those 2 forces. There are many experts in their forces. If an accident happens, it will be too dangerous." Happy shook his head and gestured with his hands. "I don't want to be protected by Brother Mo all the time. I don't want to be a cripple protected by Brother Mo all the time." Emoshur thought for a moment and finally nodded. "All right then, let's enter the dragon's cave." A look of gratitude appeared on Happy's face as he quickly entered the dragon's cave. This was what Emoshur thought. Right now, every time Happy used a skill, he would faint once. Perhaps it was because he had always protected her before and she had experienced too little. Perhaps the more she experienced, the better the situation would be. When everyone entered the dragon's cave, Mosher put it away with a thought. Then, he opened the map on his multifunctional watch and teleported all the way to Tiandao sect. At the same time, in the teleportation tower of Tiandao sect, more than 30 figures appeared in the teleportation hall. The sect master of Tiandao sect, who was cultivating, suddenly felt more than 30 figures teleporting back. There was a hint of joy between his eyebrows. They came back so quickly. It should be a success. Soon, the first elder came to report. As soon as the first elder came in, the sect master took the initiative to ask, "First elder, is it a success?" However, as soon as he finished speaking, he realized that something was wrong. The first elder panicked and his face was pale. "Sect master, it's not good." "What's wrong?" The sect master also frowned. The first elder said, "Our world society's strength is far beyond our imagination. The people we brought, except for those with teleportation devices, are all dead." At this point, the first elder almost lost his voice. Tiandao sect didn't have as deep a foundation as Corpse Village. The core disciples he brought today were almost half of Tiandao sect's core strength. It was equivalent to losing half of Tiandao sect's core strength in this battle. The sect master's face also changed. He asked in shock, "What's going on?" The first elder said with lingering fear, "The hidden strength of world society is far beyond our imagination. They have more than 400 mechas." "What?" The sect master's face changed drastically. More than 400 mechas. This number was much more than that of Corpse Village. The first elder continued, "Not only that, they also have some kind of secret weapon that shoots at us from all directions. Almost all of our disciples below the level of Desolate Hunter died under this weapon." The sect master was puzzled. Even the first elder can't destroy this weapon? The first elder still had lingering fear. "I've tried, but that weapon is very strange. It can attack us at will, but when we attack it, no matter if it's physical or energy attacks, they will all miss. It's as if that weapon doesn't exist at all." The sect master's eyebrows knitted together. The world society is actually so strong. The first elder shook his head and said, "This isn't the most terrifying thing. Sect master, do you still remember the mutated wild beast summoned by the world society's leader during the martial arts tournament 2 months ago?" The sect master nodded. "Why?" The first elder said, "We all know that the mutated wild beast's strength has reached level 5. The sect master nodded. "So I sent the first elder, a level 7 Desolate Hunter, to destroy that level 5 mutated wild beast." The first elder shook his head repeatedly. "It has evolved. Looking at its strength, I'm afraid it has reached level 8. "What?" Hearing this, the sect master's face changed again. He said in disbelief, 3 levels in 2 months. The first elder nodded. "I'm afraid, yes." When he said this, even the first elder himself couldn't believe it. Creatures that had reached that level, be it humans or wild beasts, generally needed hundreds of years to advance by 1 level. But that mutated wild beast had advanced by 3 levels in just 2 months. Even though he saw it with his own eyes, he still couldn't believe it. Chapter 354. Even when the first elder of Tiandao sect saw the sea dragon clone rise 3 levels in 2 months, he still couldn't believe it. After all, it was too unbelievable. After hearing this, the sect master of Tiandao sect pondered for a moment and asked, "First elder, in your opinion, we've offended the world society this time. Will they come after us?" The first elder didn't even think about it. With the style of the world society's leader at the martial arts tournament, they definitely will. "Sect master, please make plans early." Hearing this, the sect master's eyebrows were knitted together. This was really a case of going for wool and coming home shorn. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have gotten involved in this mess even if he was beaten to death. After a moment, the sect master said, "Summon all the elders and the higher-ups back. Tell them to be here within half an hour." We'll discuss how to deal with the world society. Yes. Soon the first elder left. Half an hour later, in the conference hall of Tiandao sect, all the higher-ups of the sect, more than 100 of them, were present. Everyone looked at the sect master with a serious expression. This was different from the past. In the past, whenever there was an important matter, the sect master would wait until everyone was present before arriving. But this time, when the first person walked into the conference hall, he found that the sect master was already sitting on the main seat. In the past, before the sect master arrived, they would whisper to each other, gossip, and chat. But this time, everyone realized that this must be an unusual matter. Everyone looked at the sect master with a serious expression. After all the higher-ups were present, the sect master didn't say anything unnecessary. He said directly, "We've offended the world society. They have a level 8 mutated wild beast and 400 mechas. They're expected to kill our Tiandao sect tonight. We must prepare early." Hearing this, the higher-ups were all stunned at first. Then, their expressions became extremely serious. What did a level 8 mutated wild beast mean? It meant that they were completely at a disadvantage in terms of high-level combat strength. And 400 mechas meant that the other party had more than 400 level 1 desolate hunters. In fact, each mecha was even stronger than a level 1 desolate hunter. After all, a level 1 desolate hunter couldn't condense a defensive light shield. But a mecha could. The Tiandao sect master continued. "Let's not talk too much. Everyone, think about what other methods we have to deal with 400 mechas and a level 8 mutated desolate beast. Don't forget, the leader of world society himself is also an existence that can crush a level 1 desolate beast." When everyone heard this, they once again fell silent. "Sect master, activate the sect's energy barrier." An elder suggested. The other elder shook his head. "Of course we have to activate the sect's protective energy barrier, but not now." Every minute the protective energy shield was activated. The amount of energy consumed was unimaginable. If we activate it now, by the time they attack us at night, our energy crystal sources would have already been exhausted. The sect leader nodded. "That's why we need to make preparations first. Then, we'll send out some hidden sentries to investigate from 500 kilometers away. It won't be too late to activate it once we discover traces of the world society." Everyone nodded in agreement. Another Grand Elder said, "Apart from that, we still need to ask for help from the corpse village. If our heavenly Dao sect is really destroyed, then the next target of the world society will be the corpse village. So, Great Elder, please help me contact the corpse village immediately." "Yes," the Great Elder hurriedly replied. At this moment, bang! In the quiet meeting hall, a muffled explosion suddenly sounded. Everyone looked towards the source of the sound. They saw the head of a level 1 desolate hunter suddenly explode into a cloud of blood without warning. Blood splattered everywhere. The tables and walls around him were splashed with blood red. The right face of an elder on his left was splashed with blood. The left face of an elder on his right was splashed with blood. Then, bang 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 bang. In the meeting hall, almost all the level 1 desolate hunters' heads exploded into a cloud of blood. In Heavenly Dao sect, 70% of the people above desolate hunter level were level 1 desolate hunters. At this moment, among the more than 100 people in the meeting hall, there were more than 70 desolate hunters. At this moment, the heads of these 70 desolate hunters had all exploded. In the meeting hall, the blood mist was so thick that the visibility was less than 5 meters. Everyone was shocked and shouted one after another, "Not good! There's a psychic master!" A level 10 psychic master in Heavenly Dao sect hurriedly tried to spread out his psychic power. However, just as his psychic power spread out, it was instantly suppressed back into his body. "Not good! It's a psychic master!" Bang! Before he could finish his words, his whole body exploded into a cloud of blood. When everyone in the meeting hall heard this, their hearts surged with despair. The attacker was actually a psychic master. After a level 10 psychic master was a psychic master. Not only was a psychic master much stronger than a psychic master, But the most important thing was that they could control others from the depths of their hearts. For example, they could stimulate the fear in the depths of people's hearts. For example, they could create certain illusions and lead people into the abyss. For example, they could directly control the consciousness of others and make them do things that they would never do in the past, or even commit suicide. Therefore, every psychic master was an extremely terrifying existence. Not to mention that just their battle prowess alone was extremely terrifying. In terms of level, a psychic master was equivalent to a desolate hunter. However, every level 1 psychic master could at least defeat a level 4 desolate hunter who was 3 levels higher. Even some psychic masters who were abnormal enough could easily defeat a level 5 desolate hunter who was 4 levels higher. This was the terrifying part of a psychic master. However, a level 10 psychic master was already very rare, and a psychic master was even rarer. Therefore, even these people from Tiandao sect had never seen a psychic master. At this moment, when they heard that there was a psychic master, other than despair, there was only panic in everyone's heart. The sect master led the remaining 20 or so level 2 desolate hunters and fled the meeting hall. Outside the meeting hall, the heads of the Tiandao sect disciples who were level 1 desolate hunters and below were constantly exploding. It was like the blood-colored fireworks set off by Tiandao sect during the New Year. Within Tiandao sect, there were more than 30,000 people. At this moment, these 30,000 disciples exploded into fireworks one by one. Under the sun, it looked gorgeous and bloody. Everyone in Tiandao sect felt a pain in their hearts. These were all cultivated by Tiandao sect at a high price and with great effort. They looked up. They saw a young man. He had a delicate face and was dressed in black. There was a pair of blood-red wings on his back. He looked down from above. When everyone saw this person, their faces suddenly changed. The leader of world society. How is this possible? World society is so far away from here. How could he come here so quickly? Chapter 355. Everyone in Tiandao sect saw Emoshur standing alone in the sky. But none of them dared to underestimate Emoshur. That was because the sound of fireworks constantly rang out around them, constantly reminding them of the danger. The person in front of them was not alone. Instead, he was a monster who could kill a desolate hunter, a summoner who could summon a level 8 mutated wild beast, and a spiritual psyche master. Even the level 7 desolate hunter from Tiandao sect did not dare to move. In his opinion, he had no chance in front of this young man. This young man's strongest killing move should be to summon that beast. If he summoned the beast like the female summoner at the martial arts competition, then he could forcefully interrupt his summoning and kill him before he could summon the beast. But this young man did not move when he summoned. There was no warning. It was as if he could summon it with just a thought. No matter how fast his actions were, how could they be faster than his thoughts? At this moment, Emoshur suppressed Tiandao sect with his power alone. In the entire Heavenly Path sect, no one dared to have any thoughts of resistance. The power of one person was so terrifying. The Tiandao sect master knew that he would not be able to escape death today. But if he died, then so be it. But if the Tiandao sect that had been passed down for thousands of years was destroyed in his hands, how could he face the ancestors of Tiandao sect? He was not willing. So he looked at Emoshur in the sky and said, "Leader Mo, Tiandao sect was wrong." Everyone in Tiandao sect heard this and turned to look at the Tiandao sect master. The sect master actually took the initiative to admit his mistake. One must know that with the sect master's personality, even if he had offended the village chief of Corpse Village, he would rather give up land and pay compensation than apologize. But today, he actually admitted his mistake to the leader of world society. This was definitely the first time. Since the Tiandao sect master had already said the first sentence, the rest was simple. He continued to speak. "My mistake was not to follow Corpse Village to exterminate world society. And Tiandao sect was also coerced. We did not intend to go, but Corpse Village threatened us by cutting off some contact with us. We had no choice but to submit to them. Actually, we are also victims. Ever since our Tiandao sect saw gang leader Mo's glory at the martial arts competition, we knew that gang leader Mo's future was limitless. We can't wait to befriend him, so how could we possibly go? Emoshur looked at the sect master of Tiandao sect coldly and interrupted him. Hand over the map of the ancient dragon battlefield. The sect leader of the Tiandao sect was shocked again. How did World Society's chief Mo know that he was the one who took the map of the ancient dragon battlefield? However, he didn't have the time to dwell on this. He asked, Clan leader Mo, I know that I will definitely die today. However, if I hand over the map of the ancient dragon battlefield, please let the disciples of the heavenly Dao sect go. In the future, our Tiandao sect will be your slave. You have no right to talk about conditions. Emoshur said coldly again. When the sect master of Tiandao sect heard this, his face turned extremely gloomy. World Society's sect leader, don't go too far. You should know that even a cornered dog will jump over a wall. Emoshur sneered when he heard this. Oh, why don't you dance for me? As he spoke, he moved his mind. An 800-meter-long sea dragon avatar suddenly appeared. Long Wei was instantly released. At this moment, in the entire Tiandao sect, except for the level 5 and above desolate hunters, all the remaining tens of thousands of disciples were extremely terrified. They hurriedly prostrated themselves on the ground. This was the natural fear of low-level creatures towards high-level creatures. Involuntarily, even the sect master of Tiandao sect prostrated himself on the ground. He didn't dare to move at all. Only a few dozen level 5 desolate hunters, 7 level 6 desolate hunters, and 1 level 7 desolate hunter could barely stand. At this moment, the sect master of Tiandao sect was slapped in the face. He had just said that a cornered dog would jump over a wall. However, when the other party summoned his beast, he directly prostrated himself on the ground. This was definitely the biggest humiliation he had ever suffered in his life. Hand over the map. Emoshur spoke again. He only said these 4 words. This time, the sect master of Tiandao sect didn't resist and hurriedly replied, Yes, I'll go get it now. Soon he ran into the main hall. A moment later he ran out again. In his hand was a simple and unadorned map. Emoshur landed on the ground, took the map, and glanced at it. His draconic sense probed the map. From the probing of the draconic sense, he knew that this map was indeed very old. There was no doubt that it was a real map. Putting away the map, he flew into the sky again. He said to the sea dragon clone, Do it. The sea dragon clone immediately let out a long roar. Roar, roar. An 800-meter-long huge body slowly descended from the sky. On the ground, although the desolate hunters below level 5 were terrified, none of them dared to even think of escaping. The tentacles that shot out from the sea dragon clone directly pierced through their bodies. The blood in their bodies was devoured by the sea dragon clone. As for the desolate hunters above level 5, although they wanted to escape, could they escape? The sea dragon clone's tentacles pierced out. Puff, 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 puff. The soft tentacles pierced through the steel-like bodies of these desolate hunters above level 5. In the end, everyone was sucked dry, including the strongest level 7 desolate hunter. At this point, the Tiandao sect was completely destroyed. As for the remaining branches and industries of the Tiandao sect, Emoshur was too lazy to take over them. Even if he took over, he would still have to run them in the future. When Emoshur controlled the sea dragon clone to devour in the sea, he already had an idea. In the future, if possible, he would move the virtual dragon palace to the sea. You can do whatever you want on land, but the sea is all mine. One had to know that the flaming beginning continent's ocean area accounted for 70% of the land. The land area was only 30%. Therefore, Emoshur was not very enthusiastic about the industries of these sects on land. Of course, although he was not enthusiastic, Emoshur was still very enthusiastic about taking over some useful materials. For example, some alloy materials that could be used to make mechas. Of course, money was also something he was very enthusiastic about. He released the little monk from the dragon cave. The little monk looked at the blood all over the ground and couldn't help but shake his head. He put his palms together and lowered his eyes. He chanted the name of Buddha. Amitabha, what a good thing. Boss, it's not nice of you to kill people without bringing me along. Mosher smiled and said, in the next few days you will have time to kill people. Now find a way to connect to the Tiandao sect's electronic account and transfer all their money to the World Society. Okay. After the little monk finished speaking, he turned on the virtual keyboard. Do you need a password? Mosher asked. He had just plundered the memories of the Tiandao sect's sect master, so he naturally knew the password of the Tiandao sect's account. The little monk shook his head. No need. For him, any password was just a decoration in front of him. Chapter 356. At the same time that Tiandao sect was destroyed, the village chief of Corpse Village also received the news. They had already sent people to infiltrate Tiandao sect. Therefore, when Mosher appeared in Tiandao sect, they also received the news. When the village chief received the report, his heart skipped a beat. Half an hour ago, when the level 7 Desolate Hunter escaped with dozens of other Desolate Hunters and a dozen core disciples, he already knew that the World Society would not let this matter rest. Therefore, he gathered the village's upper echelons to discuss this matter. In the end, they received the report after 10 minutes of discussion. They said that Mosher had already killed his way to Tiandao sect. According to the time, won't the World Society still need more than 10 hours to reach Tiandao sect? Strange. Did he use the wormhole transportation device of the World Society disciples? That's impossible. The wormhole transportation device requires one to know the other party's exact coordinates. Even if he knows the other party's coordinates are in Tiandao sect, he can't use the wormhole transportation device without knowing the exact coordinates. Then how did he do it? For the first time, the village chief's face, which had always been expressionless, finally showed a change. There was obviously a trace of surprise. After a moment, his mouth, which was like the crack of an old tree, slowly spat out a sentence. The most important thing now is to discuss how we should deal with this. Hearing this, everyone nodded. The village chief looked at the level 7 Desolate Hunter who had just escaped. Ancestor, you know the situation over there the best. What do you think we should do? The level 7 Desolate Hunter didn't even think before he said, run! Hearing this, the group of skinny upper echelons all turned to look at the ancestor. Ancestor, our corpse village has been passed down for thousands of years. The World Society is just a small gang that was founded 2 months ago. We haven't even faced them head-on, and we want to run away? This ancestor, if we run away today, won't we become the laughing stock of the world? Ancestor, even if the World Society is very strong, our corpse village is not weak either. They don't know about the many tricks we have. If we go all out, how can the World Society withstand it? Even if they have level 8 mutated desolate beasts, our village's protective array was left behind by our ancestors. It was enough to withstand the attack of a level 10 mutated dire beast. There's no need for us to escape. The village chief also slowly opened his mouth. Ancestor, aren't you overestimating the World Society's strength too much? Even though they had suffered heavy losses on the first hunting island. However, that was their home ground after all. Now that it's our home ground, we have all the advantages. So why should we be afraid of them? Moreover, every disciple of the corpse-chasing village has a skill in controlling corpses. This is our strongest trump card. On average, each person in the corpse village had 500 puppets. Even your puppet is a level 10 Desolate Hunter. Why would we be afraid of them? The village chief's last sentence hit the nail on the head. The level 7 hunter felt as if he had just woken up from a dream. He patted his head. He was indeed frightened by the World Society's mutated desolate beast. For a moment he was scared silly. He never thought that his puppet would be a level 10 Desolate Hunter. Speaking of which, the level 8 mutated dire beast summoned by the World Society's leader was very strange. When the Desolate Hunters below level 5 saw it, they didn't even dare to escape. They just prostrated themselves on the ground and waited for their deaths. Even though he had escaped back, his mind still felt a little dizzy. It seemed that when he saw the level 8 mutated dire beast in the future, he had to kill it immediately. Thinking of this, the level 7 desolate hunter finally regained his confidence. He even laughed dryly a few times. Ha ha ha, look at me. I'm so old that I've forgotten about my puppet. I'm old, I'm useless. However, if the world society really dares to attack, my level 10 desolate hunter puppet is not to be trifled with. Also, village chief, quickly send people to activate the Great Village Protection Array. At the same time, transfer all the other higher-ups and all the mechas over. It's been a long time since our corpse-chasing village went all out. I'm afraid the world has already forgotten how terrifying our corpse-chasing village is. Seeing this, the surprise and fear on everyone's faces disappeared. What replaced it was confidence. The village chief nodded. Yes, ancestor. I'll do it right away. The level 7 desolate hunter said, Right. Awaken the remaining 72 puppets. Hearing this, the village chief's expression changed slightly. 72 earth puppets? The rest of the people's expressions also changed slightly. The 72 earth puppets were all level 7 desolate hunters of the corpse-chasing village when they were alive. When they were about to die, they willingly sacrificed themselves and let the village's experts kill them. Then, they were refined into puppets using a secret technique. This kind of refinement was different from ordinary refinement of puppets. Instead, they used an extremely secret technique of the corpse-chasing village, which consumed a large amount of crystal sources and a large amount of energy to successfully refine them. After the refinement was successful, the realms of these 72 puppets were actually increased. All of them were level 10 desolate hunters. These were the 72 earth puppets. Every single village chief had said that these 72 earthly baleful puppets must not be touched unless it was absolutely necessary. This was because the 72 earth puppets were indeed powerful, but every time they were used, they would consume a large amount of energy. After using them, they would need to spend at least a few decades to recharge to their peak state. Previously, no one had suggested using the 72 earth puppets. Now, this level 7 desolate hunter had actually suggested it. It seemed that he was still worried. But this was also good. If they used the 72 earth puppets, they would definitely be able to take down the world society in one fell swoop. Moreover, the corpse-chasing village could also borrow the power of these 72 earth puppets to become one of the top 100 powers in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud. Thinking of this, the village chief nodded. Yes, ancestor. Soon, the 72 earthly baleful puppets were summoned. All the disciples had returned to the village. The village's protective array had also been activated. A faint black energy shield protected the entire corpse-chasing village. At this moment, even a small mosquito could not enter or leave the village, let alone a person. After doing all this, the level 7 desolate hunter said, When the world society comes, to avoid unnecessary losses, all of your disciples will stay in the village's protective array. Let me deal with that gang leader MO of the world society. Speaking of this, a trace of longing appeared on his face. 72 earthly baleful puppets. This old man can't wait to see your power. The gang leader of the world society is a level 8 mutated wild beast. Hee hee. Today, I'll show you the true strength of our corpse-chasing village. Chapter 357. The corpse village had made all the defensive preparations. At the same time, their hidden sentries had been activated and were observing the area within 100 kilometers of the corpse village. They didn't set up these hidden sentries today. They had been in the corpse village for a long time. They had a tradition of setting up hidden sentries within 100 kilometers since 1,000 years ago. However, these hidden sentries were not activated on normal days. Instead, they were doing all kinds of business within this 100 kilometers. Some looked like farmers, some looked like peddlers. Some were even beggars. However, once they were activated, they would immediately join the investigation team. Some would continue to disguise themselves and investigate the situation in the open. Some would hide in hidden places and observe all the movements around them. None of this would be known unless they were the core disciples of the corpse village. Even the ordinary disciples of the corpse village didn't know that these were their own people when they met their own hidden sentries. This was also a very important reason why the corpse village was still standing even though it had experienced many battles in its history. After half a day, Mosher killed all the people in the Tiandao sect who should be killed and took all the things that should be taken. He destroyed the things that he couldn't take away. Then he released the others from the dragon's cave. They were all led by Emma. Mosher said to the little monk, "Make a holographic projection flag with the words world written on it." The little monk nodded. Soon a large flag was made on the screen. There were 2 words on it, world. Mosher shook his head. He drew it on the ground according to his memory. The words heaven and earth were combined into one word. The word heaven was changed from one side to a vertical side, and the other side to a seal. In this way, the word included both heaven and earth. It looked very cultured, but it didn't lose its dominance. He said, "From today onwards, this will be the symbol of our world society." The little monk looked at the symbol and quickly sketched a pattern on the computer. A moment later, the pattern was completed. Then it was projected into the air through more than 400 mechas. The projection was a huge, fiery red flag that was 1,000 meters tall and more than 300 meters wide. In the center of the flag was a combination of the word world in blood red. The 2 blood red words under the heavens represented a bloodbath. Whoever dares to provoke me, I will destroy them. If the world provokes me, I will bathe the world in blood. Everyone looked at this huge flag and felt incomparably domineering. The small monk exclaimed, "Oh my God! It seems like you've been thinking about this symbol for a long time." Mosher didn't want to waste time with him. "Next, you will go and massacre all the businesses in Corpse Village." Emma asked, "Boss, what about you?" Mosher raised his head and looked towards the northwest. "Let's go to Corpse Village." Emma's heart trembled as she said, "Boss, although you are very strong, the Corpse Village is too dangerous. If you really want to go, I'll go with you." Mosher shook his head. "Do your job well." Emma could only lower her head. "Yes." Happy used sign language to speak to Mosher. "Brother Mo, what about me?" "Of course you're coming with me." Mosher gently smiled. Happy nodded. "Okay. First of all, Mosher wouldn't be at ease if Happy wasn't by his side. After all, no matter how dangerous the situation was, he could let her enter the dragon's den to hide. It would be absolutely safe. Second of all, if they couldn't deal with the corpse village, he could only let Happy do it as a last resort. No matter how many strong people you have, I have a prophet. I'm just asking you, are you scared? After giving out the orders, the other members of World Society flew towards the nearest business in Corpse Village according to the map. Mosher used Dragon Shadow Steps to head towards Corpse Village. Soon, he was 300 kilometers away from Corpse Village. He used his dragon's consciousness to investigate. Soon, he found that Corpse Village had already activated the protective light shield. At the same time, Mosher also found hundreds of hidden sentries outside Corpse Village. It seemed that the corpse-chasing village was prepared. These hidden sentries were basically the core disciples of Corpse Village. From the memories of these core disciples, Mosher learned that the puppet of the level 7 Desolate Hunter in Corpse Village was actually a level 10 Desolate Hunter. That wasn't all. There were 72 Earth puppets in Corpse Village, and they were all level 10 Desolate Hunters. Mosher shook his head. It seemed that he had underestimated Corpse Village. A force that had been passed down for thousands of years had a terrifyingly deep foundation. In front of such a foundation, even the sea dragon clone's strength was slightly insufficient. However, those puppets were only controlled by humans. If the person controlling the puppets was killed, those puppets would naturally self-destruct. Thinking of this, Mosher's lips curled into a cruel smile. Now, I'll let you have a taste of what ultimate fear is. Thinking of this, he activated Dragon Shadow Steps. With just 3 steps, he passed through the hidden sentries and arrived in front of the protective light shield. With the fourth step, he teleported into the light shield. Then, he used the concealment and camouflage skill. His entire body's shape and color blended into the surroundings. A few villagers from the zombie village passed by 2 meters away from him, but they didn't notice him at all. Although Corpse Village was called a village, it was actually a large city. The streets in the city were crisscrossed and extended in all directions. All the houses and buildings were made of stone. Emoshur covered the entire village with his dragon's thoughts. He carefully examined the entire village several times. He was able to clearly see everyone's strength. Then he hid. He waited for the arrival of night. 2 hours later, the higher-ups of Corpse Village couldn't wait any longer. Village chief, that kid should be here by now. Why isn't he here yet? If he doesn't come, our protective light shield's energy will be wasted for nothing. Yeah, although we have the crystal source vein, we can't afford the consumption of the protective formation. There was no expression on the village chief's face. He slowly opened his mouth, and his voice was like sawing wood. Is the vein more important, or is the continuation of Corpse Village more important? When the rest of the people heard this, they all fell silent. The village chief continued, "Everyone has their own duties. Based on my understanding of that kid, he'll definitely come." When the rest of the people heard this, their hearts trembled. They all replied, "Yes." However, they waited for half a day. For half a day, Emoshur didn't appear. As for the village's light barrier, it consumed an enormous amount of energy crystals. After half a day, the energy crystal sources in their village were almost depleted. The village chief had no choice but to order the people at the crystal source vein to send some back. However, when he contacted them, he frowned. This was because he couldn't contact the people at the crystal source vein at all. Chapter 358. When the village chief tried to contact the crystal source mine, he realized that he could not reach them at all. His heart skipped a beat. The crystal source mine has been attacked. When the others heard this, they all came to a realization. They had been tricked by Emoshur. Emoshur had purposely killed his way to Tiandao sect and destroyed the entire sect. This had created a lot of psychological pressure on them, causing them to mistakenly believe that Emoshur would definitely kill his way back to the Corpse Village in a short period of time. Therefore, they had placed the focus of their defense within the village. Unexpectedly, Emoshur had taken them by surprise and ambushed their crystal source mine. Thinking of this, the village chief hurriedly contacted a dozen other properties. As expected, he had already lost contact with 3 properties. "Quick, Great Elder. Please immediately send people to support our various properties." The Great Elder nodded. Yes. He received the order and left. The Great Elder quickly left the Corpse Village with more than 100 desolate hunters. Among them were the 4 newly promoted level 7 desolate hunters. In the entire village, it was as if only the elder of the Corpse Village was left. Not long after they left, Emoshur waited for them to leave. In the dead of night, his dragon will moved. Bang! The head of a hunter who had just fallen asleep suddenly exploded. Blood splattered all over the room. Bang! The head of a patrolling scavenger was also blown up. The street lamp next to him was covered in blood. Bang! The head of a hunter who had just woken up also exploded into a bloody mist. Bang! 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 Muffled sounds continued to ring out in the Corpse Village. When the higher-ups of the Corpse Village saw this, their expressions changed. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! Bang! 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 Amidst their screams, the heads of the villagers of the Corpse Village continued to explode. The village chief of the Corpse Village quickly came out. When he saw the heads of the surrounding hunters exploding, he instantly realized that this was the work of a psychic master. His voice was as dry as sawing wood as he hollered, "Where are our psychic masters? Fight back!" The 300-odd telekinesis grandmasters of the Corpse Village quickly launched a counterattack against Emoshur's dragon consciousness. However, there were only slightly more than 10 level 10 telekinesis grandmasters among the 300 or so. As for Emoshur's dragon will, It had already reached level 6, far surpassing the standard of a level 10 psychic master. When their telekinesis came into contact with Emoshur's, it was like a small stream coming into contact with a large river. It was completely out of their control. On the other hand, Emoshur's dragon will force their telekinesis back into their bodies almost instantly. Furthermore, bang 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 bang. The bodies of these psychic grandmasters were also constantly exploding. At this moment, the level 7 Desolate Hunter ancestor had also appeared. He wanted to use his perception to detect Emoshur's existence. However, he wasn't a great psychic master. When his eyes couldn't see Emoshur, he couldn't detect where Emoshur was. He stepped on his hoverboard shoes and flew into the sky. His eyes seemed to emit light in the dark night. His eyes stared unblinkingly at the corpse village below. Even so, he couldn't detect Emoshur's existence at all. After a moment, he frowned and couldn't help but curse out loud. "Kid, come out if you have the guts. Let's fight one-on-one." Emoshur sneered. "Only a fool would fight one-on-one with you." He continued to hide in the dark, his dragon consciousness constantly launching attacks. As long as his body didn't move, the other party wouldn't be able to detect him. Bang 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 bang. All the psychic grandmasters below level 10 had already exploded into a bloody mist. When the level 10 psychic masters sensed Emoshur's powerful draconic thoughts, they all yelled out the same words one after another, frightening everyone present. "Psychic! It's psychic emergence! It's over!" The corpse village chief's heart thumped when he heard this. Psychic! How was this possible? Weren't psychic grandmasters very rare? How could a psychic grandmaster appear in the world? If they really had psychic grandmasters, wouldn't they have been famous in Yuzhou long ago? Why hadn't they been famous all these years? The level 7 Desolate Hunter's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. If the other party really had a psychic grandmaster, it was hard to say who would win today's battle. The corpse village chief saw that all the psychic grandmasters were at their wits' end and immediately shouted. Infrared detection, thermal imaging, supersensitive laser detection. In short, use all the detection methods. I don't believe that we can't find them. Yes, village chief. The few desolate hunters hurriedly went to prepare. However, more than 10 minutes later, the few desolate hunters walked back. All of them had grave expressions. "Village chief, we've already used all the detection methods, but we still can't find them." When everyone heard this, they all looked as if they had seen a ghost. The other party could attack them at will, and they couldn't even see the other party's hair. Could it be that this kid was really a ghost? At the same time, bang 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 bang. The level 10 psychic grandmasters' heads also exploded into a bloody mist. At this point, all the psychic grandmasters in the corpse village were dead. At the same time, the heads of the desolate hunters kept exploding. Bang 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 bang. The muffled sounds of the heads exploding made everyone's scalp go numb. After pondering for a while, the corpse village chief gathered his chi in his dantian and let out a voice that enveloped the entire village. "All the desolate hunters, run!" In the sky, the level 7 desolate hunter only felt that he had been greatly insulted when he heard this. He was a level 7 desolate hunter, but in his own territory, he couldn't even protect his own villagers. Instead, he had to let his own villagers escape. This was definitely a great humiliation. "Come out if you have the guts. Let's have a fair duel." The muscles on his skinny face kept twitching in anger. He roared furiously. However, Emoshur didn't care about him at all. He continued to explode the heads of the desolate hunters. "Want to escape? You're thinking too much. The faster you run, the faster you'll die." Bang 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 bang. The higher-ups of the corpse village could only watch as the villagers' heads exploded one by one, but they couldn't do anything. A sense of helplessness rose in their hearts. In the end, under their witness, the heads of all the desolate hunters in the corpse village exploded. The entire corpse village was instantly filled with the thick smell of blood. One had to know that there were more than 50,000 desolate hunters in the corpse village. When Emoshur's dragons were swept over, these 50,000 people all exploded into a bloody mist. It was obvious how powerful and terrifying the dragon's will was after it reached level 6. At this moment, there were only about 20 desolate hunters left in the entire corpse village. Even if the desolate hunters who had just been sent out and rushed back were included, there were only about 100 people left. These 100 people were in this huge and deathly silent village. A sense of fear suddenly came over them. Chapter 359. The corpse village was 20 kilometers from east to west and 18 kilometers from north to south. However, such a huge city was completely empty at this moment. The empty village was completely shrouded in a bloody mist. Through the bloody mist, one could see headless corpses lying everywhere on the road, in the square, and in the courtyard. This made the entire corpse village look like hell. In this hellish village, there were only 100 or so desolate hunters left. Looking at this hellish scene, the village chief was both frightened and furious. He was frightened because the spiritual psyche master's strength was so terrifying. A mere spiritual psyche master was able to exterminate more than 50,000 people in their village. He was furious because, as the village chief, he could not do anything about the extermination of more than 50,000 people in the corpse village. His face, which had always been as calm as an ancient well, was now filled with rage. World Society's leader Mo, are you trying to exterminate our corpse village? In his anger, he roared in a voice that sounded like sawing wood. However, there was no movement in the surroundings. World Society leader Mo, if you are really someone, come out and fight me one-on-one. Let's fight to determine the winner. The village head of the corpse village continued to roar. However, there was still no movement in the surroundings. World Society leader Mo, could it be that you, the dignified World Society leader and the champion of the martial arts competition, only know how to hide behind people's backs? The village chief continued to provoke him. However, there was still no movement in the surroundings. At this moment, Mo was hiding in a house. He leaned against the wall, and his entire body seemed to have become one with the wall. He listened to the village chief's provocation, clamor, and even insults. Mo was not moved at all. The other party had a level 7 desolate hunter and 72 earth puppets. The other party's clamor was only to force him to come out. As long as he showed himself, Mo was sure that they would not fight him one-on-one. Instead, they would shamelessly surround him. Of course, if it were Mo, he would do the same. Therefore, he would not fall for such a trick. He focused most of his attention on the level 7 desolate hunter in the sky. Only a level 7 desolate hunter could control the 72 Hellfiend puppets. Therefore, he had to take advantage of the fact that the level 7 desolate hunter was unprepared and kill him. However, the level 7 desolate hunter was already on high alert. It would not be easy to kill him in a short period of time. Therefore, Mo had to wait for an opportunity. The village chief yelled for a few minutes, but there was no movement in the surroundings. He looked at the level 7 hunter in the sky. Ancestor. The level 7 desolate hunter in the sky frowned and said, "This brat killed all the hunters of corpse-chasing village. If we don't kill this brat today, how can we face our ancestors? All of you go from house to house and conduct a carpet search." Yes. All of the 100 or so desolate hunters were filled with righteous indignation. Following the instructions of the village chief of the corpse-chasing village, they went to search every house. Mo did not care about this at all. He focused all his attention on the level 7 desolate hunter in the sky. He did not believe that the desolate hunter could remain alert all the time. There was always a time when people relaxed. As long as the level 7 desolate hunter relaxed, it would be time for him to attack. In this way, the night passed in the blink of an eye. After a night of searching, the 100 or so desolate hunters did not find anything. On the other hand, the village chief of the corpse-chasing village received a few more reports. Village chief, the crystal source mine in Longxi was attacked, and there were many survivors. The flying skateboard shoe factory in Pingliang was attacked, and only a few people escaped. The Changal Palace leisure villa was destroyed, and none of the disciples survived. Hearing these reports, the village chief of the corpse-chasing village was burning with anger. He wanted to send the 100 or so desolate hunters as reinforcements, but the corpse-chasing village was the headquarters of the corpse-chasing village. If this place was destroyed, the 1,000-year foundation of the corpse-chasing village would be destroyed in a day. However, if he did not send reinforcements, the industries of the corpse-chasing village would also be destroyed. At that time, only the 100 or so desolate hunters would be left in the corpse-chasing village. It would probably take another few hundred years for the corpse-chasing village to return to its peak. The next day, after spending another half a day, the 100 or so desolate hunters had thoroughly searched the entire corpse-chasing village. In the end, they did not find anything. Village chief, that kid seems to have disappeared since last night. He has not appeared at all. Village chief, could it be that he has already left? The village chief shook his head. Impossible. The ancestor is watching from above. If he really left, do you think the ancestor would not notice? Everyone raised their heads and looked at the ancestor in the sky. All of them were silent. Time passed, and it was the third day. The desolate hunters of the corpse-chasing village once again seriously searched the corpse-chasing village. Still, they did not find anything. Their ancestor had been watching from the sky for 2 days. At this moment, even their patriarch's attention was no longer focused. In these 2 days, the people of the world society, with the 400 or so mechas, were invincible wherever they went. They had already destroyed all the industries of the corpse-chasing village. Mosher asked Emma to bring everyone back to the base. He continued to hide in the corpse-chasing village. At this time, the village chief had already received the news that all the industries of the corpse-chasing village had been destroyed. He sat on the ground weakly. At this time, he was already regretting it. He knew that the reason why the world society was so ruthless was definitely because of the incomplete dragon vein. If he had known this, he would not have taken the incomplete dragon vein for himself 2 months ago out of a moment of greed. But at that time, he did not expect that the world society, which had just squeezed into the top 100 at that time, would grow to such a terrifying extent in just 2 months. To be able to force the corpse-chasing village into such a desperate situation. What was the background of the world society? But at this point, there was no use regretting it. He knew very well that even if he handed over the incomplete dragon vein now, the world society's leader would not let them go. So, the only thing he could do now was to contact the other forces as soon as possible and ask them to support the corpse-chasing village. If all the forces united, no matter how strong the world society was, they would not dare to go against the wishes of the people of the world society. Thinking of this, the village chief immediately ordered the Grand Elder. Immediately send people to the other forces to ask for help. We can promise them that we will give them 1/3 of the industries of the corpse-chasing village. The Grand Elder also knew the seriousness of the matter. He immediately gave the order. More than 10 minutes later, more than 10 desolate hunters left the corpse-chasing village. Although Mosher knew that they were going to ask for help, he did not follow them, because that old guy in the sky was still watching over them. If he did anything, he was afraid that he would be discovered. Chapter 360. Mosher didn't stop those who asked for help. He didn't need to stop them. If any faction wanted to help Corpse Village, he could just go back and destroy them. With world society's current strength, even the second-ranked Tiandao sect could be easily destroyed. What else could the other factions say? What Mosher needed to do now was to calm down and hide. Wait for the level 7 desolate hunter in the sky to relax. Half a day later, at the 11th ranked Holy Mother of Lotus sect. All the higher-ups of the Holy Mother of Lotus sect were gathered at Lotus Peak. A branch leader said, "A few days ago, Tiandao sect and Corpse Village went to the first hunting island together in an attempt to destroy world society. In the end, they didn't manage to destroy world society, and Tiandao sect was destroyed instead. Although the Corpse Village hasn't been destroyed yet, Their various properties have suffered a great blow. It's more than just a heavy blow. According to the latest news, all the disciples below the level of Desolate Hunter in Corpse Village were killed by a spiritual reader in one night. Hiss! Hearing the 3 words, psychic trainer, everyone gasped in shock. After all, to all of them, a spiritual reader was a legend. How can there be a spiritual reader in the world? Killing all the Desolate Hunters in Corpse Village in one night? Isn't this spiritual reader's strength too exaggerated? The Holy Mother of Lotus Sect, by Lian Hua, frowned. Originally, she wanted to find an opportunity to destroy the so-called World Society. She didn't expect World Society to have such strength. Even the second-rank Tiandao sect was easily destroyed by them. Even all the scavenger hunters in the Corpse Village had been killed. She couldn't help but feel a little scared. Fortunately, when Tiandao sect of Corpse Village went to destroy World Society, the Holy Mother of Lotus sect didn't follow. Otherwise, the Holy Mother of Lotus sect would have been destroyed long ago. At the same time, she was secretly surprised. World Society had only risen for 2 months, and their strength was already enough to contend with the first-ranked Corpse Village? No, it wasn't a contest. It was a complete suppression. What was going on? After a while, Bai Lian Hua ordered everyone. All the disciples of the Holy Mother of Lotus sect must avoid World Society's disciples in the future. Those who disobey will be killed. When the crowd heard this, they were all horrified. One of the branch leaders asked doubtfully, "Sect Master, the World Society's Sect Master killed our Holy Mother, the White Lotus School's Holy Maiden, in front of everyone at the Martial Assembly. Not only are you not going to pursue this matter, but you are also telling us, the Holy Mother School of White Lotus, to give way to the World Society's disciples. This is too depressing." Another sect leader said, "Holy Mother, we suspect that the previous Saintess candidate was killed by the World Society. If we still have to avoid them when we see them now, I'm afraid our disciples will be bitterly disappointed." Holy Mother by Lian Hua glared at the 2 sub-leaders. It's better to be disappointed than to lose your life. Where there's life, there's hope. As the saying goes, the peak of prosperity is bound to decline. No matter how strong the world is, there will be a day of decline. When they decline, it will be the day of our revenge. Just as he said this, a disciple suddenly came to report. "Holy Mother, a disciple of the Corpse Village wishes to see you." The Holy Mother frowned, then said, "That's right, let him in." Soon, a disciple of the Corpse Village, who looked like a dead tree, walked in quickly. When the upper echelons of the Holy Mother Lotus cult saw this person, they all nodded their heads in greeting. He welcomed him. The disciple of the Corpse Village didn't have time to say any pleasantries and directly said to the Holy Mother by Lian Hua, "Holy Mother, ever since the World Society won first place in the martial arts competition, they have become more and more arrogant. A few days ago, they destroyed the Tiandao sect, and now they want to destroy our Corpse Village. Our village chief thinks that the World Society is too powerful for one sect to deal with. So he suggested that we all join forces to have the strength to fight against the World Society." Everyone looked at each other when they heard this. No matter how strong the Corpse Village was in the past, any sect would welcome them with a smile. The disciples of the corpse-chasing village were all arrogant as well. But today they were so down and out. It was really surprising. Hearing this, the Holy Mother by Lian Hua couldn't help but sigh. She said, "The World Society is so arrogant that they have already killed their way to the Corpse Village? Yes, Holy Mother, please send people to rescue the Corpse Village. Our village chief said that we can give a part of the Corpse Village's property to the Holy Mother by Lian sect." Hearing this, everyone was stunned again. The property was very important for the development of every sect. Now that the Corpse Village was willing to give up a part of their property, it was clear that they were indeed in danger. This was indeed very tempting to her. However, after a while, she said, "It doesn't matter if it's property or not. Our Holy Mother by Lian sect has always taken pleasure in helping others. If we can help everyone in the world, it will be our greatest joy." Hearing this, the disciple of the Corpse Village said gratefully, "Thank you, Holy Mother, everyone in the corpse village will be grateful to you. However, the Holy Mother waved her hand and said, "It's just that our Holy Mother by Lien's sect is in need of people now, so we really can't send anyone. I'm really sorry. How about this, if you need money or anything else, I can help you. What do you think?" Hearing this, the disciple of the corpse village felt a chill in his heart. When the tree fell, the monkeys would scatter. Back then, before the corpse village suffered a great disaster, all the other factions wanted to curry favor with them. Now that the corpse village suffered such a great disaster, all these factions changed their faces faster than flipping a book. Holy Mother, that's not right. 3 years ago, when you were breaking through, you almost went mad. Our village chief saved you. But now that our corpse village is in trouble, The Holy Mother by Lien's sect smiled kindly and said, "I will remember your village chief's kindness. However, it's indeed inconvenient for our Holy Mother by Lien's sect to help today. Go back and tell your village chief that if anything happens to you, I will definitely bury him properly." Hearing this, the disciple of the corpse village knew that there was no hope. He could only shake his head and sigh helplessly, leaving in grief and anger. At the same time, the disciples of the corpse village who went to ask for help from the other factions basically had the same experience. In the corpse village, the village chief's heart sank again when he received the reports from these disciples. The corpse village used to rule the entire Yuzhou, and everyone responded to their call. Now that they were in danger, no faction came to save them. The world was cold, and people's hearts were cold. However, it was useless to sigh now. They still had to think of a way to destroy the world society. Otherwise, they had to give up the foundation of the corpse village and escape this place. However, no matter which option it was very difficult for the corpse village to achieve it now. Chapter 361. The current corpse village had already become isolated. No faction would come to their rescue, and the remaining desolate hunters of the corpse village were unwilling to give up their foundation, especially unwilling to give up their dragon vein. Therefore, more than 100 of them were still guarding the corpse village. In the past few days, Mosher did not do anything. He had already entered the dragon's cave. Every day, other than sleeping, he would talk and chat with Happy. Although the dragon's cave was not as colorful as the outside world, but the two of them had more time to spend together. This was a rare leisure time for the two of them. Unknowingly, 10 days had already passed. In these 10 days, the ancestor of the corpse village had not rested for a moment. He had been in the sky, concentrating on investigating the entire corpse village. Finally, after 10 days, he found that there was no more movement. He was sure that Mosher had left. Otherwise, how could there be no movement for 10 days? Phew! He let out a long breath. In the past 10 days, he had not blinked at all. He had not eaten or drunk a mouthful of water. Even though he was a level 7 desolate hunter, his body could not take it anymore. Of course, he did not completely relax. Instead, he called over the other 4 level 7 desolate hunters who had just been promoted and ordered, "The 4 of you guard the 4 sides of the village. Don't relax for a moment. Based on my senses, the leader of the world society will not retreat so easily." "Yes," the 4 of them hurriedly replied in unison. So the ancestor landed on the ground, went to eat and rest. The other 4 guarded the east, south, west, and north of the village. Mosher observed this scene from the dragon's cave and was secretly delighted. That old man finally could not hold on any longer. However, he still did not go out immediately. What if that old man was pretending to be tired and deliberately luring him out? So that night, Mosher did not do anything. In fact, he was right. Although the ancestor of the corpse village was very tired, he was still alert. However, his vigilance was still very strong, and he did not immediately rest. At this moment, he was just pretending to sleep to lure Mosher into the trap. The next morning, he saw that Mosher did not appear. Only then did he feel relieved. Perhaps he was worrying too much. It had been more than 10 days. The world under Heaven Assembly should have left long ago. Moreover, from the looks of it, their spirit reader could only kill scavenger hunters but not scavenger hunters. Thus, he called the village chief over and once again reminded him to be on high alert. After that, he ate something and finally fell into a deep sleep. Noon. Emoshur finished his lunch. He scanned the area with his draconic will. The ancestor of the corpse-chasing village was already fast asleep. Only then did he quietly come out of the dragon cave. Using the concealment and disguise skill, he arrived outside the courtyard walls of the corpse-chasing village's old ancestor in broad daylight. Then he moved his mind. The sea dragon clone appeared instantly. Almost as soon as it appeared, it pounced on the patriarch of the corpse village. Boom! He directly crashed through the courtyard wall. Boom! He crashed through the wall of the house. The elder of the corpse village was sleeping soundly. Suddenly, he felt an extremely terrifying feeling coming from all over his body. He rolled off the bed. At the same time, his right hand had already drawn a semicircle in the air. He wanted to summon the 72 earth puppets. However, it was already too late. He had just drawn a semicircle. Crack! His right hand was directly bitten off. Fresh blood spurted out, spraying the wall beside him into a blood-red color. The corpse-chasing village's old ancestor was extremely terrified. However, he knew that he could not escape at this moment. In front of this level 8 mutated desolate beast, where could he escape to? The only way to survive was to summon the 72 earth puppets as soon as possible. He condensed energy in his left hand again. Then, he continued to draw that semicircle. At the same time, he shouted, "The 4 of you, come over and help." This voice was like a thunderclap that resounded throughout the entire corpse-chasing village. The 4 level 7 desolate hunters guarding the 4 directions hurriedly rushed over as fast as they could. However, it was already too late. The sea dragon clone bit again. Crack! It directly bit off the corpse-chasing village's old ancestor's left hand. At this point, the corpse-chasing village's old ancestor could no longer summon the 72 earth puppets. The sea dragon clone bit again and swallowed the corpse-chasing village's old ancestor. It chewed a few times in a row. The corpse-chasing village's old ancestor completely stopped breathing. At this moment, the large semicircle that the corpse-chasing village's old ancestor had drawn in the air slowly dissipated with his death. Seeing this, Emoshur secretly heaved a sigh of relief. At this moment, the other level 7 desolate hunters of the corpse-chasing village rushed over. They happened to see the scene of their old ancestor being swallowed. Everyone was shocked. "Beast, die! Kill it! It harmed the old ancestor, kill it!" However, at this time, without the old ancestor, no one could control the 72 earth puppets. These 4 level 7 desolate hunters had only just been promoted. Their puppets were only level 6 or level 7. How could they be a match for the sea dragon clone? The sea dragon clone's body made a series of cracking sounds. In an extremely short period of time, it reached a length of 800 meters. Long Wei was released. All the desolate hunters below level 5 in the corpse-chasing village immediately prostrated themselves on the ground, including their village chief. The level 7 desolate hunters were also panicking. They hurriedly turned around and wanted to escape. First of all, their levels were 1 level lower than the sea dragon clone. Second of all, the long way released by the sea dragon clone made them feel an extreme sense of fear. However, could they escape? The sea dragon clone's huge tail directly smashed towards a level 7 desolate hunter. When the level 7 desolate hunter had just rushed over, he had already summoned his level 7 puppet. He hurriedly controlled the puppet to block above his head. He wanted to block the sea dragon clone's attack. However, bang, the sea dragon clone's huge tail, which was hundreds of meters long, smashed down like the golden cudgel of the great sage. It gave people the feeling that the mountains were collapsing and the earth was splitting. Whether it was the level 7 desolate hunter or his puppet, they were directly smashed into a bloody mess. The sea dragon clone opened its mouth again and swallowed another level 7 desolate hunter and his puppet into its mouth. In just 10 seconds, the sea dragon clone finished off the 4 level 7 desolate hunters and their puppets. When everyone in the corpse-chasing village saw this, their expressions changed drastically. The old ancestor was dead. All the level 7 desolate hunters were also dead. It seemed that only death was left for them. The level 5 and level 6 desolate hunters were better off. They still knew to turn around and run. The desolate hunters below level 5 seemed to have forgotten how to escape under the long way of the sea dragon clone. One by one, they prostrated themselves on the ground. Not to mention resisting, they didn't even dare to look at the sea dragon clone. Chapter 362. The sea dragon clone killed all the level 7 desolate hunters in the village, scaring all the level 6 desolate hunters so much that their faces turned ashen. They turned around and fled. However, before they could escape, they were devoured by the sea dragon clone one by one. As for the remaining desolate hunters, they didn't even have the thought of escaping. Emoshur came out of the dragon cave at this time. He looked at the village chief of the corpse village. Last time at the martial arts tournament, he was high and mighty with an expressionless face, as if everyone owed him money. But now he was prostrating on the ground, not daring to move. It was as if he owed a loan shark and was being chased. Emoshur was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. He asked coldly, "Where is the dragon vein?" The village chief of the corpse village replied with trepidation, "The dragon vein is in the forbidden area of the village. I'll go get it now." With that, he carefully got up and walked toward the tower in the middle of the village. With the sea dragon clone next to him, Emoshur wasn't worried that he would play any tricks. A moment later, the village chief of the corpse village took out an object. The shape of this object looked like a segment of the spine of something, and it was incomplete. However, unlike the spine, it was translucent, as if it was carved out of crystal. It was like a work of art. Emoshur took the incomplete dragon vein, secretly looking forward to it. Mending the incomplete dragon vein would allow it to play its greatest role. However, things like dragon veins were extremely rare to begin with. It was already a great fortune to be able to get an incomplete dragon vein. It was easier said than done to mend the incomplete dragon vein. But for Emoshur, it wasn't impossible. He first used his mind to order the sea dragon clone. "Kill them all. Leave no one alive." Everyone present trembled violently when they heard this. However, under the long way of the sea dragon clone, no one dared to resist. The sea dragon doppelganger did as Emoshur said and killed everyone. Emoshur first used his dragon's will to investigate. Soon, he found many useful things in the corpse village. For example, cash and all kinds of rare metals that could be used to build mechas. He put all these things into his personal storage. Even though his personal storage wasn't small, it couldn't fit all of them. It seemed that he would have to continue upgrading his personal storage. After doing this, Emoshur said in his mind, "Don't worry, system, check in for a special event." The system's voice quickly sounded, "Frowny face, sign in successful. Sign in event. Annihilate corpse village, obtain incomplete dragon vein, sign in reward. 72 earth baleful puppets. 1 incomplete dragon vein." Emoshur was overjoyed when he saw the 2 rewards. The 72 earth fiend puppets all had to have the strength of a level 10 desolate hunter. If this were to be released, how terrible would that be? Then, he looked at the incomplete dragon vein in his backpack. This incomplete dragon vein was also transparent, as if it was carved out of crystal. Moreover, the shape of this incomplete dragon vein matched the one he had obtained previously. Emoshur took out the incomplete dragon vein from before. He connected the gaps of the 2 incomplete dragon veins. There was not the slightest bit of difference. In the next moment, energy seemed to be overflowing from the 2 incomplete dragon veins. This energy intertwined at the gap, emitting a golden light. This golden light wasn't too bright at first, but after a moment, it became so dazzling. Even with Emoshur's eyesight, he couldn't see what was happening clearly. It was as if the entire corpse village was enveloped by this golden light. This golden light lasted for a full 2 minutes. It wasn't until 2 minutes later that the golden light slowly disappeared. It was only at this moment that Mosher finally realized what was going on. He saw that the two incomplete dragon veins had actually merged into one. They had become a complete dragon vein. The entire dragon vein was shaped like a 1-foot-long spine. However, this spine was completely transparent. One could see that the energy contained in it was flowing like liquid. She made people want to hold her in their hands just by looking at her. Once they held it in their hands, they couldn't bear to let it go. Mosher's heart skipped a beat. This thing seemed to have some kind of bewitching power. Once it was in their hands, they wanted to keep it forever. As for the previous legend that one could obtain an enormous amount of energy after obtaining it, Mosher didn't notice it at all. Could it be that the previous legend was false? After all, Mosher's dragon mind was strong and his will was firm. Although he couldn't bear to let it go, he found that this thing didn't seem to be as magical as the legend said, so he put it in his backpack. However, he didn't know that this dragon vein would play a crucial role in the future. After putting away the dragon vein, Mosher used the dragon shadow step and quickly left the corpse village. When Mosher returned to Hunting Island number 1, the news of the corpse village's destruction had spread throughout Yuzhou. In a restaurant, "What? The corpse village was destroyed. Is there something wrong with your brain? Be careful, you'll be destroyed by the corpse village's disciples if you spread rumors like this. Yeah, you dare to spread rumors about the corpse village. You must be tired of living. I'll be a fool if I lie to you. Just this morning, I passed by the corpse village, and there was no one there. It was like a ghost village." Really? He's right. I just came from there, and there was no one in the corpse village. It was really destroyed? Who did it? I heard it was the World Society. The World Society? How is that possible? In an instant, the World Society's name spread throughout Yuzhou. In just a few days, they destroyed the Tiandao sect and the corpse village. Just like Han Jiansheng, who froze 16 states with one sword. Every force had ordered their disciples not to provoke the World Society. On the other hand, the forces that had received corpse village's request for help were secretly terrified. Fortunately, they didn't send their disciples to help the corpse village. Otherwise, they would probably end up the same as the World Society. Moreover, even if they didn't help the corpse village, they were still secretly worried. If the World Society really wanted to settle the score, would they, the forces that had dealings with corpse village, be eliminated by the World Society one by one? Even the military of Yuzhou was alarmed. When the military commander of Yuzhou saw the news, he quickly summoned Lu Shuming. He asked, "Is the World Society so powerful?" Lu Shuming had just received the news, and there was surprise in his tone. "I knew they were strong, but I didn't expect them to be so strong." The military commander said, "Then what are you waiting for? Hurry up and summon him to the military." Lu Shuming nodded. "Yes, Commander. I'll do it right away." You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.